Punch it to me.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Colby Cast, where we dive into movies,
21 gigawatts!
TV,
Sometimes I'll start a sentence, and I don't even know where it's going. I just hope I find it along the way.
and everything in between.
Well, I don't know how you get a podcast, but you should look into it.
I'm Colby, and I'm joined by my two awesome sons, Caleb
I don't know how to tie my shoes.
and Luke.
I never shut up.
Together, we're your friendly neighborhood pop culture nerds, here to share our thoughts on Star Wars, Marvel, the latest entertainment news, and maybe even some sports.
You believe in miracles? Yes!
So grab a piece of cake
Cake! Everybody loves cakes.
and find a comfy spot on the couch, because this is your place for community and conversation about pop culture and storytelling.
What an incredible smell you've discovered.
You know, a lot has happened since we last recorded. The Mead Boys, the three of us, we visited Hoth. We ventured into the wild north. Shout out to all of our listeners that live in the frozen tundra known as the northern part of the United States, because we went to Minnesota, and let me know if you agree with me or not. I feel like it's Minnesota 1 and the Mead Boys 0, because that place kicked our butts. We brought it back with us, and we've been struggling ever since with the cough and the sneezing and I don't think it was the weather. We were there for a hockey tournament, and we were probably we probably caught something that some child had, but boy, oh boy, it's still with me. I don't know about you, but maybe you can hear it in our voices. But yeah, it's been fun.
That's what I was gonna say. If you can hear our nostrils, it's because we're sick.
I would like to say
I'm-
it's various stages of recovery.
Definitely. I am literally like a day or two behind your symptoms, but I'm hoping that I can kick it faster than you.
Yeah, because so tired, so
Yeah.
tired. And
I'm not
if you're a
gonna
day or two
concede a
behind me,
loss.
huh?
I'm not going to concede a loss to Minnesota, though.
No,
I'm not going to say 1-0 Minnesota. I didn't get sick until I was already like 4 days back in California.
that's true. But I have to tell you that experiencing negative 14, negative 17 degree temperatures with wind and the wind chill knocking it to like negative 35 honestly is not something I ever thought that I would experience in my life. So yay me. Yay
I feel
and
like I
thank
said
you
this a million
layers.
times.
Uh-huh.
I think I said it a million times while we were there. Going into an ice rink and taking clothes off was the craziest thing.
I found myself in a perpetual state of this is too cold, this is too hot, this is too cold, this is too hot. Just because they keep all the places there so wonderfully toasty, but you have to wear 115 layers to get to those places. And then once you're there, I just couldn't get all the layers off fast enough because it's just going too hot or too cold, too hot or too cold. But yeah, I mean, it was cool. It was a cool time. It was a fun tournament, and we got to see a lot of hockey, and we had some good food. Boy,
We saw some college hockey.
meat.
We saw some college hockey that was sick.
Yeah. We got to see the Golden Gophers. I officially adopted the Golden Gophers as my NCAA team because I haven't had one before, and I've been to 2 of their games, so why not? I'm over.
Yeah.
Plus, they're good.
Yep. You actually got to witness me drink something that wasn't cold. I never drink anything hot except for like hot tea or soup. And you saw me drink a hot chai because I don't drink coffee, so that was my supplement. It was
That's
that
right.
cold over there.
That's right. Yeah, I remember. Yeah, it was something else. We were there for like 4 or 5 days. The first couple days weren't that bad. I mean, 20s and 30s is cold, but it's not that bad. But the last 3 days was just like, oh. And then we get back to Los Angeles, and what it was like. If you consider wind chill, there was like 100-degree difference, and I'm not
Yeah.
exaggerating because it was in like the high 60s, low 70s, and it was negative 30 something with the wind chill in Minnesota. So
Well,
yeah,
even if
no
you
no
don't
wonder we're
consider
sick.
wind chill, even if you don't consider wind chill, Monday when we took off, it was negative 22. And then when we landed back in LA, it was 59. So
Yeah,
that's literally like 81-degree difference.
yeah, yeah.
Quick math
It
like
was
that.
Man, I give everybody that lives in those cold climates a lot of credit. You guys know how to live your life in a way that we don't know how to live our lives because here in Los Angeles, I've said this before. When we first went to Chicago, the first time we were like in super snowy cold weather, I learned very quickly like we have it so easy here in Los Angeles. If we need to run out to the store at 9 o'clock at night, grab a light sweater, put on some shoes, run out to the car, zoom our way to the store and come back. That same trip takes like 3 hours in cold climate because you have to dig your car out, make sure you're dressed properly, not slip on black ice, drive safely, do your errand, and then do the same thing coming back because it probably snowed you in while you were in the store for 5 minutes. You have to come out and brush off your snow. So just tons of props for everybody that lives in that live in those conditions. Yeah,
You
yay
know what I
us, we
think is a
survived.
crazy thought? I feel like everybody makes fun of Los Angeles people for never saying like, "Oh, hey, how far is your house from your work?" You always say a time,
Yeah,
never a distance.
yeah,
I feel like it makes more sense for people who live in cold weather climates and snowy climates to adopt the time distance narrative. Because
yeah.
if you're just going up the street to like a convenience store for something, you have to like de-ice your windshield, warm up the car, get going, get in there, get out. Like that is not 2 miles of time. That's a
No.
long time, I would imagine.
Hey, how far is the Walgreens? Wait, hold on. Is it January? That's 3 hours away, but it's only a
Exactly.
mile. Yeah, yeah. It's so interesting to see how people live. So I'm glad to say that we survived Hoth. Didn't snow on us. No
No.
snow. Just super freezing cold. Yeah. So it was fun. Thanks, Minnesota. You did great, Minnesota. You're you're our favorite. Not really, but it was cool. Um, as people may be able to tell, there's a void in our conversation right now. There's silence because Luke is not going to join us for this conversation because he started his new school and he has a lot of homework.
Nerd.
And he is working hard on his homework and doing coaching and hockey. So we're going to let him take the night off. And unfortunately, he's going to miss our conversation about something I've been wanting to talk about for weeks. Just things haven't been lining up. So finally, we get to talk about, and I actually get to hear your opinion of the Skeleton Crew. We did talk about the first 4 episodes, but we're going to talk. I don't. We don't need to stick to the last four. I'm really interested in hearing your opinion on the last 4 episodes in the second half of the season, but also just the season, the show as a whole. But before we get to the Skeleton Crew, I wanted to share some Star Wars news with you, Caleb. I don't know if you've heard about this. If you have, it hasn't hit our radar in our conversations around the house, but it's sort of I think that this is pretty interesting, and I am interested to hear your take on it. Last week, so um, yeah, this episode's going to drop midweek, last week of January, so the second to last week in January. The Hollywood Reporter reported that Ryan Gosling is in talks to star in a Star Wars movie, and that Star Wars movie happens to be the one that is being produced and written and brought to us by Sean Levy. Sean Levy is the one that is the guy that directed, among other things, he directed Deadpool and Wolverine.
Oh, interesting.
So it's been like 2 years in the making that they announced that he's working on a Star Wars movie, but it's never been like officially announced at a celebration or anything like that. And this report states that if Ryan Gosling actually signs to star in this movie, that the movie is going to be bumped up to the very next one that's going to be in production, and it would be released next after Mando and the Mandalorian and Grogu movie. So before I tell you what I think, what do you think about Ryan Gosling potentially being in a Star Wars movie?
I I don't know. Obviously, these actors and these actresses that we quote unquote know, they all play fictional characters, but I feel like you need to have an extra added aspect of fiction to you to be in Star Wars. And he seems too human to me to be in Star Wars.
Oh, interesting.
You know what I mean?
Sure, sure, sure,
He
sure.
doesn't seem sci-fi enough to me. And I know he's done sci-fi roles and stuff, but like I don't know, he to me he is Barbie. To me he is Ken like right now. And I love Ryan Gosling. He is incredible. He is a great actor. I enjoy many films with him in it. I don't know. I To me, it's like when you see Jim Halpert for the first time after binging all of The Office on a different screen. He's Jim Halpert until he's not. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
For
That,
Ryan Gosling, he is Ken right now until he's not.
well, I mean, you could see the Fall Guy, then he wouldn't be Ken. He'd be the Fall Guy. Did you see that?
I I did.
Oh, so he's still Ken to you after watching. I haven't seen the Fall Guy, so I can't tell you.
It was me.
Yeah, I didn't do too well in the theaters. I would like to watch it just because you know,
I think you'd get a
I'm
kick out of it.
also a
It's
fan of
fun.
Ryan Gosling.
It's fun. I'm a fan of his too. Movie was
I my favorite Ryan Gosling role is from La La Land, and I will always bring up La
Blah,
La
blah,
Land
blah,
when
blah, blah,
given
blah,
the opportunity.
blah, blah,
Just
blah, blah, blah,
someday I will tell the story about what La La Land did to you and Luke.
blah.
So
No.
amazing, so great. But I see what you're saying about Ryan Gosling. I think because he's so I think the guy is iconic now. Like he's literally an iconic actor, and it's because of Ken.
Yeah.
Uh, Even though yes, he's been in a ton of movies, and what is the movie he did? And he was with Steve Carell. It's that rom com, Crazy Stupid Love. Is that a
Yep.
movie? Crazy, yeah.
That's the one.
Uh, he's great in that movie. Great in La La Land. I know he's in Blade Runner, the sequel. I haven't seen either Blade Runner movies. I know. I'm sorry. Um.
I actually had to watch the first Blade Runner for an architecture project in high
Oh,
school.
interesting. Interesting.
Isn't that a crazy like prerequisite for an architecture project?
Yeah, I don't know what the connection is.
So a big portion of the film, pretty much like toward the end, um, there's this very like futuristic and weird building that he's like chasing through. And when I say him, I mean Harrison Ford, not Ryan Gosling. And it's filmed at the Bradbury Building, which is in LA. And in the class, we had to do a research project on a local landmark. So people were doing all sorts of different places, Walt Disney Concert Hall, yada yada. And uh, I didn't know what this building was. I was like, let me do something different. And my teacher said, no, you can't do it until you watch Blade Runner. And I was just like, how? Like, why? And then he said, you have to watch it and tell me why. And I was like, oh, you're really funny. Ha ha ha. So, because I already picked it, and the only other buildings that were available were like whatever things to me, they mattered nothing to me. I was like, let me watch the movie. We had to like rent it for actual money because it wasn't on any streaming services. Like It felt like such a wasted thing for a public school project, but I digress.
I remember going down to the Bradbury Building when you had to go and take pictures and do that thing. The Bradbury Building is pretty cool. If you ever come to Los Angeles or you live in Los Angeles and haven't been by, it's beautiful. It's a really beautiful building. The architecture is world famous, very historical. And right across the street is the what is it called? The Grand Central Market, where there's some
Grand
amazing
Central
places to
Market.
eat.
Yep. And then a little bit further up the way is like Angel's Flight, which is like the trolley system that
Yeah,
is all over like San Francisco, but is
yeah.
like our only one down here.
Yeah, it just goes up like one block. Never been
Yeah.
on it, but I've seen it a bunch. Yeah, so there's the story of Blade Runner. Oh, Ryan Gosling. I was like, why did we start talking about Blade Runner?
Yeah.
Um, bl- my favorite, my favorite. You know how like websites and other entertainment places will like start poaching this story and repurposing quotes, even though it was reported by the Hollywood Reporter. There's like a million articles out there of people writing about the article, just
Yeah.
regurgitating the information. My favorite headline of one of the sites that did this is "I'm just Ken dot 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 Obi."
That's
Like
pretty good.
I'm just Kenobi. It's pretty good. I was trying to figure out how I could steal that, but I couldn't. So I'm just going to give credit to a nameless source. It wasn't my idea, but yeah, I'm just Kenobi. I'm all for it. I want to see what he, given the opportunity. I think he's a good enough actor to be able to overcome what you're bringing up, which I think is a very good point. I think it has a lot to do with what kind of a character he's going to play. Like if he's just gonna get stuck in a stormtrooper's costume and never see his face, like other people that have made cameos, that makes no sense. But
Yeah.
I don't know. Like if he's I don't know. I don't even want to speculate what kind of a role it would be, but I think he could pull it off. And nowadays, movies need big stars because you're going to get people that just are a fan of Ryan Gosling to go see a Star Wars movie that would never go see a Star Wars movie,
Yep.
and that's a recipe. What is it called? They call it like a four corner or a four quadrant. It has to appeal to the four quadrants to make $1 billion or something. And I'm invested in Star Wars movies making a lot of money because that means they're going to make more of them. So bring it on. And Sean Levy, not only did he do Deadpool and Wolverine, which I'm a big fan of, he did a Netflix movie called The Atom Project, which I enjoyed very much. Did you
That
ever
was a
see
good
that?
movie. Yeah, I
It
did.
was a good
By
movie.
your recommendation.
Yeah. He did Free Guy, which people have opinions of, but I thought it was fun. It was a fun movie, and that was with the other Ryan Reynolds, uh, just like the Adam Project. But did you know that he also was responsible for Real Steel, which I know you're a fan
Let's
of?
go.
Yeah, he
Man,
directed Real Steel,
this guy's got skills.
and he directed the three Night at the Museum movies, which I have never seen, but I know are very popular, and they were all very well received.
I think I've only ever seen the first one.
I haven't even seen then. So, yeah. So if it happens, this is going to be the next Star Wars movie to be fast tracked, and I just want to see Star Wars movies in the theaters. So if it means this is going to be the next one, I'm all for it. Just get me Star Wars movies. So there's
Do you
what
know
it
when
comes down
that
to.
movie's supposed to come out?
The Mandalorian Grogu or the Sean Levy one?
The Sean Levy one.
Well, it's all about like the release dates that studios put, and Mando and Grogu are supposed to hit theaters May of 26, so like a year and a half.
Hmm.
Originally, they had put an untitled Star Wars movie in December of that same year, which was a red flag to me because the only other time that two Star Wars movies have come out within 6 months of each other was The Last Jedi and Solo, and it didn't go great. Even though I'm a fan of, I love The Last Jedi and I'm a big fan of Solo, it didn't perform well. And one of the things that people blamed on its performance was that it was too close to The Last Jedi. So
Yeah.
too many Star Wars movies. But they have moved that December 26th release to December of 27. They just have not said what that movie is. So if this is the movie that's going to go into production, and start filming, then it would be that December 27 slot.
Okay, so right around May 2027. You're gonna have to remind me of all of this because all of the movies that you told me that Levy did, exciting. Bring that to Star Wars with Ryan Gosling, exciting. But I'm gonna forget by tomorrow. So
Yeah, well, that's why we have this podcast to remind you of things that I want you to watch. That's it. Well,
true.
that's it for the Star Wars news. Dee 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 beep beep beep. Thank you for joining us.
You should insert like a page ripping, so you're like ripping it off the calendar, like a list of to dos.
Oh, I like that. I like that. But this will have to do until then because I still have my sounds.
I'm gonna start throwing baseballs at you every time you play that.
Oh, you have no idea how hard I try not to be the morning radio DJ that just plays annoying sounds through our entire recording sessions when we do our podcast because I absolutely love it and I've resisted it for close to 3 years because we are within a couple months of our 3 year anniversary. But now, when I found these little sounds in here, I had so much fun playing them last time. I don't know if I can resist very much longer. And I know I have we were just talking about it a couple days ago, remember? How I have a very large library of MP3 sounds that I've taken from movies and stuff. I
Oh
may
yeah,
need to start incorporating them.
you definitely should be the morning DJ. Even have like your own taglines.
One of the first MP3 audio sounds that I downloaded when I learned that you could do something like that was Captain Jack Sparrow saying, "Why is the rum gone?"
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I don't know why that was the first one, but it was.
Because that's hilarious. You
So talk
know,
to me about.
if you steer into this whole disc jockey radio host, we could bring in guests and like have them. It'd be awesome. It'd be so good.
Yeah, I'm down. I'm absolutely, yeah. Yeah, yeah. And then I could say, Rick D's in the morning.
He's gonna come
Tell me
save you.
what time it is. Rick D's in the morning. Tell me what the climate is.
You know, there's gonna be one person that gets that reference, and she's not even gonna laugh at it.
You're talking about mom?
Yes.
I don't know why that stupid jingle just tickles me to death. It just cracks me up.
Have you heard the most recent variation of Big Boy's um like intro stuff?
No.
He'll go and say it's blah 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 blah, and you're on the radio with Big Boy, and everybody else that has a microphone in his studio just echoes Big Boy, and I want to do that to you. Like you just start talking, I just go Big Boy.
But don't they do something like big boy? They don't do it like that. It's just,
I don't know. I don't think
yeah.
so.
Yeah.
Maybe
He's
maybe
too in
in the
LA
past.
radio. He's been around forever. I grew up listening to Rick D's in the morning. Tell me what time it is every time. So tell me about Skeleton Crew. Let's talk about Skeleton Crew. I've been waiting for weeks and weeks, like I said. I want to hear your overall thoughts on the series. Like I said, we can talk about details and what things about each episode of the four, 5, 6, 7, and 8. You know how we do things here. But overall thoughts on the series itself, the 8 episodes. I don't know if there's going to be a season 2, so I don't know what to call it, season 1 or the series recap or what it is. But we're not going to get lost in those kind of things. Just tell me, what did you think about the show now that it's a complete season 1 is done?
So much potential. Some of it was reached. Other things literally changed my mood to the worst thing Star Wars has made me feel. And
What?
yeah, yeah, and I don't know if it just caught me at the wrong day, at the wrong time, because I was sick, whatever it was, but certain things in especially the finale, were legitimately blood-boilingly annoying.
What?
Yes.
You need to rewatch them because you
No.
clearly were affected by circumstances.
Sure. If I'm ever healthy again, I will rewatch them.
Well, I certainly hope you're healthy again. That's very interesting to me. Um, Not 100% shocking. I don't feel that way at all in any stretch of the imagination.
At a
So I
certain point, at a certain point, when things are like at the climax of the climax, I literally looked at the TV and went, "Oh my God," just like that, but a lot louder.
okay. I want to hear what that was. But first, let me tell everyone out there listening to my wonderful voice. I love the show. I was happy to see a story that I was looking forward to watching every single week again. Um, I love the characters. I loved the story. I loved the music. I love how it exists in its own independent little space. I think it's a great example of the kind of stories you can tell in this huge, massive Star Wars galaxy. I do like the stuff that connects to each other. I mean, that's pretty much all of what we've gotten with Star Wars is it connects somehow, some way, and I
Yeah,
enjoy being surprised by new ways of how they can connect it, like the Grogu uh, moment in Mandalorian season 1, episode 1 was just like still to this moment like the I think one of the highlight moments of um, Disney owned Star Wars stories. And you could throw like Luke Skywalker showing up, that and for me as well in Mando. Um, but as much as I enjoyed those kinds of that continuity, I really loved how they did this. I thought they did it very well, and not having to connect it in these direct ways, because I could literally go up to a coworker and say, "Watch Skeleton Crew. It's fun. It's a fun Star Wars show. It's a fun Star Wars story," and not have to give them the 3,000 word essay as to how where it fits, why it fits,
yeah,
who
exactly.
is what, and all that stuff, right? Which I still love to do, but I think some people don't need to hear that. So, um, I I was very happy with it, very pleased with it. And again, I'm famously easily pleased, but this time uh, I was I was happy. There were like some legitimate moments in some of the episodes that like was they were just so enriching to me. Uh very the emotional, uplifting, the childlike whimsy that comes with the four kids, and I loved it. I just ate all of that stuff up. I thought it was well written. I thought the performances were magnificent. I thought it looked great. So there you go. Big shocker. I loved another Star Wars show. I know. I get it.
To give you my version of what you just did, we'll call it like the feelings recap. I liked it overall more than I anticipated, but there were things about it. Like the highs were higher than I thought, but the lows, the very few I would call legitimate lows, were very, very low for me. Um, I was happy to say I cared about the characters, and certain characters developed the way the show wanted you to develop with them, you know? Um, Jude Law's character was very interesting. The pirates, without having to bring Hondo into it, I thought was really awesome
Mhm.
because there's a lot of lore around Star Wars pirates just in almost any like Star Wars project. So I think that's even cooler that we got a literal like treasure hunt. I remember you describing it as like a Indiana Jones meets Star Wars
Mhm.
before it even like came out. So that was
Mhm.
something that always stuck with me. And I do think it was a lot of that. Um, I thought visuals were really awesome. I thought the characters were pretty cool. I don't think I would watch it over like an Ahsoka
Sure.
or a Mandalorian or anything like that, but also not the most comparable. So,
Yeah, it's very different in the way that it was approached, the way it was put together, and like the lack of like what I already said with connecting to things like The Mandalorian is making more and more connections every episode that comes out, right? And then
Yeah.
same with Ahsoka. Ahsoka exists because of connections that it
Yeah.
has made and will continue to make. And I think if it doesn't make those connections, then you're leaving people dissatisfied, right? But with this show, brand new characters, brand new story, very self-contained, and I thought that the guys that put this together, everyone involved, did a terrific. They understood what they were doing, and I think they executed it
Yeah.
very, very well. So I got to hear though, what is this moment that made you react the way that you described already?
It was the constant back and forth between Jude Law's character and all the children in the was it the surveyor, the
The
supervisor's,
supervisor.
yeah, the supervisor's room. Like,
Uh huh.
how many times are you going to threaten the kid to get what you want and threaten the kid to get what you want over and 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 not do anything?
Yeah.
It's just, to me, it was like preying on the innocence of children over and over, and it just felt annoying.
I don't feel the same way, but I can see what you're saying. I can
At
I can
at
see it.
no point, like, with KB's issues with her corroded stuff in her brain, at no point did I ever think, "This show's going to kill a child," you know? I don't
Sure,
think
that's
that
fair.
was something that they were ever gonna do, especially with, like, the children's themes throughout the whole thing, and
Sure.
if their audience is gonna be small children, they're not gonna wanna see that. They're gonna get all sorts of hate on the internet, you know? Um, but I just felt like there were different ways, dialogue heavy or not, that you could have done the same thing and shown the desperation for control and treasure that Jude Law's characters was in, you know?
So you made me think. I can't remember. Have you seen the Goonies?
Yes.
So we clearly have a very different relationship with the Goonies because I saw it when I was a kid in the '80s. Very much a different world than what you saw it in, and I don't even know how old you were when you saw the Goonies.
I have
Do you
no
know?
idea, but
Remember?
great movie.
So the reason I'm bringing up the Goonies is number one, they referenced in the marketing, or at least many people referenced how this was sort of like this show was like the Amblin Entertainment of Star Wars. They made it on purpose. They wanted it to be a throwback, as sort of like a what's it like an homage to the Amblin style movies, and those are the Goonies and the E.T. and the stuff that Steven Spielberg did in the early '80s and mid '80s, and I think it succeeded in a very unique way of being that the Star Wars version of that. The reason that I think of the Goonies when you brought up like the children in peril and not worrying for 1 second that any of these kids were going to suffer anything worse than like what we saw KB suffer, or
Yeah.
emotional type of suffering, which I think they did suffer emotionally, but physically they were never. I was never worried that something was going to happen. I agree with you there. Um, Let me ask you this: whenever you watched the Goonies for the first time, did you feel like they were ever in mortal danger? Any of them?
I think I was a lot younger, so it may have been a little bit of fear, not necessarily that they were going to perish, but definitely that something bad was gonna happen to one of them that wasn't gonna get their ultimate outcome of getting out together.
It's interesting because I mean, I remember watching it being young and just being scared to death of the Fratellis. Like
Yeah,
that family legitimately seemed psycho, right? Partially, a lot of it had to do with the performances of the actors, of course. And the mom was scarier than any of them.
yeah,
Um, but I also feel like I know that I knew that the kids, nothing was going to happen to the kids, because I think if you're watching something where the kids are the main stars, I think everybody on the planet, at least people that are thinking straight, are not expecting any of them to lose their life, because that is a way different movie, a way different story,
yeah.
right? Than what we're here to see. And I don't know if anybody even wants to see it. Uh, But I see what you're saying because I think the Goonies put those kids in situations where you felt real danger. And I agree with you. I don't feel like the kids in the Skeleton Crew were ever in situations where they were going to experience real danger. Even
Yeah.
with Jod Nanawood uh, and a lightsaber. Although I did feel like he was pretty menacing with that lightsaber. When they
Oh,
brought that
absolutely.
lightsaber into it, it was pretty cool.
I agree. The other portion of the finale that I legitimately hated was they did a good job of showing Wim sort of bounce back and forth between innocent, doe-eyed child and I need to help my friends heroics. And I say heroics with the preamble because none of these kids were like these Superman heroes, you know?
Right.
But he's looking at the X-Wings through the hole in the ceiling and all of a sudden again he's this kid just oh my god this is amazing this is going
Yeah,
to
he's
be
in
such a
awe.
cool
Yeah.
story exactly and the dad in the background just going wham 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 that's how you want to end the show dude are you kidding me
I thought that was funny. I thought that was funny.
I
And
thought it
it
was so
tracks because like the dad was constantly saying his name.
yeah
Uh I yeah. I don't have a problem with the way that the show ended, but I've seen some things pop up here and there like that they would have liked to have seen people would have liked to have seen, maybe a little bit more, you know, of a conclusion, maybe a little bit of stuff with the New Republic that had arrived, like some kind of a little bit more of a resolution with Jod. I don't
yeah
feel that way. Like I like the very much the openness that they left us with because it goes along the with the whimsical nature of the show and the childlike nature of the show because in my mind like this is a children's story and these children's stories and I hope are really just beginning. So
yeah
they're leaving it very much open ended and almost like a never ending story type of situation where if you add a scene with a little bit of resolution with Jod, then that sets the course for something, right? If you add a scene where Carson Teva shows up or somebody from the New Republic shows up or Hera or someone shows up as a big knock'em sock'em, like, look at this, like, we're going to drop your jaw here. And they have a conversation with the kids or the parents or something that sets a course for something again. But the way that they ended it, it just puts a bow on this wonderful little present that they just gave us and lets us imagine what could be next until they decide if there's going to be anything next for for the characters in the shows.
yeah
And I like that. I like that.
I agree with you I like the open-endedness of it. What I didn't like was Wim, like, turning back and being like, "Wait, you're not coming with us? Like, why are you still reaching out an imaginary hand to him or hoping that something will happen with him if he literally just
Oh,
had a lightsaber to your dad and was gonna hurt your friends?" I
sure.
didn't get that, and then it felt a little unfinished just leaving him alone there after the elevator doors closed. And then them just, like, being okay running away, even though, like, for the first time ever, the barrier's gone. This guy knows how to get in and out of the Mint. Nobody knows that he's not the what is it? The ambassador? Was that it?
Emissary.
Emissary, thank you. Nobody knows that he's not the emissary except for that group that was with them. So
Yeah.
he can still just get away scot-free, and those characters are just okay with it?
Three things about what you're saying, and I will probably forget two of the three or whatever, but I'm going to give this a shot. Number one, I liked how they left Jod just sort of looking out and smirking
Sure.
because he's definitely an opportunist, and
Of course.
I liked the reveal of how he's force sensitive and how he knows how to do what he's doing which we can get into more in a second. But more than anything, I think he's a survivor, and he does things to survive in a way that probably is not great. I'm not going to go and be you know, hold him up as a moral, example of anybody, because he does bad things to survive. But the, Jude Law just nailed it. Like, he just killed. The performance was magnificent, and he's probably one of the reasons why I enjoy the character so much. But he seems like, I always bring up Zuko when I want to give an example of a great character. Zuko is not in season 1 of the Last Airbender, is not the Zuko in season 3.
No.
And I feel like if we get more stories with Jod, we could see something like that happen over the progression of time, because he's not all bad, right? As someone that survive as a survivor and even does bad things does not mean that they're all bad. Which sort of leads me to my second point, which was the chance that Wim seems to be wanting to give to Jod. And I think that it feels like that goes back to the conversation that they had on the Onyx Cinder, where Wim sort of goes off by himself and starts to, have a moment where he's upset, and Jod comes across him and like reacts very, very, like, when he sees Wim crying, like, the way he reacted was just very, it was almost like he was watching, he saw something vulgar, like he was like,
Yeah.
oh, like, I don't want to have to deal with this. But he did, right? He stopped, he dropped his shoulders, he sighed, he turned around and he went to go talk to the kid. Maybe we don't agree with the things that he said, which was a very, very much a, probably like a recontextualization of the Jedi code not having attachments. I mean, he's telling a kid to forget his parents. Like, that's not something I'm going to get behind. But in his mind, he's thinking he's helping this kid. And if he were completely bad and selfish, he's not going to give the kid the time of day. He's going to say,
No.
suck it up and walk away, right? The reason I'm bringing that up is because I feel like there's a connection between Wim and Jod that doesn't exist with the other three characters, Fern, KB, and Neil. So that's why I feel like that moment where Wim turned back and said his name in the elevator, I feel like it was earned, while being, yeah, a little bit of a surprise. Like, why would you do this? He just was threatening to murder you and your friends and your family.
Yeah.
But I feel like Wim sees that goodness in Jod, and whether he wants to see it and it's not there or it's actually there, that little moment I felt like was a good display of that. And I said three things and I forgot the third thing, so go ahead.
I was just about to give you props. Um, don't get me wrong. I think the show is charming. I don't think it was overly like kiddie. I do think on the sort of like range that we have where it's kids show, family show, or like adult, I do
Gotcha.
think it is closer to the kids show than the family show, but I don't think it's too far away from the family show. Um, I think the themes were a lot more like kiddie. I think the adventure was a lot more kiddie. I think the everything else, like, don't get me wrong, maybe it just says something about me by saying I still enjoyed it to an extent. Um, but I don't know what it was about episode 7, the second to last one. I loved it. I thought it was incredible.
Oh,
And
interesting.
then yeah, I just thought it was so, 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 so good with like everything that happened, the tension, the realness, the fear, the like the kids were looking for ways to help each other and help their families and help their planet while not hurting their friends or hurting their family or hurting their planet. Like it was that nice little balance between the two. And I don't know, something about it just it built the tension up. It built the finale. It put the finale in such a good spot to me where a lot had to go wrong for me to hate the finale. And I didn't hate the finale. Just those two little things really annoyed me. I thought the finale was pretty good. Um, but I don't know. I really enjoyed that second to last episode.
As you're talking about it, I'm thinking back over the episode, and yeah, there were some great moments, and not just moments, but visual moments that I thought were really cool in that episode. This is the episode where we sort of end on Jod in one of the vaults, right? And he's literally so giddy that he's got his face up against this pallet of credits,
Yeah,
and they're just falling into his hands like like a pirate would be when they finally reach the treasure that they've been looking for
exactly.
their whole lives. That I thought was visually and performed so well. Then also when before that, before when they're out on the outside of the barrier, uh, Brutus, the captain, is just constantly threatening Jod, and Brutus is walking up to this ship, and the kids lower the claw down and just grab him.
Yeah,
I thought that was really cool, but then the stakes got ratcheted up big time because Jod seizes the moment. Right, he takes the opportunity and he murders him in cold blood. I mean that
yep,
was like it's one of those things where yeah, this is a kids show, but and it's not graphic or gory, but like he just murdered a defenseless person
yep,
so he can further his gain, which was very much who he is that we find out in the second half of the season. And then the whole stuff like flying through the barrier and seeing like how the barrier really works. I love how
yeah.
they designed it,
That
right?
was really
So
cool.
because it was the emissary ship, the sensors were letting it go through, but anything
Yeah,
else was getting zapped. And then when they reach the middle of the barrier, like you see how massive this thing really is, and how Aten is this planet that is just absolutely consumed by this barrier. And the way that it's been hidden makes so much sense. And I loved seeing all that being revealed. And the way that they did it, I felt was very good too. Um,
the
but
other
as
visual, and you'll have to remind me specifically of where it was. And this to me was like the only time where I was comparing it to the outside Star Wars universe that we've been introduced to. When Jod has the lightsaber ignited and the like surveillance droids behind him,
yeah,
and they're on the bridge with um I don't remember if I think KB and I don't remember who exactly was there, but essentially it was the kids and their parents facing Jod with his lightsaber ignited, and I feel like that was the only time where I've seen a non like red lightsaber and been like, "Oh man, something bad's about to go down."
I agree with you 100%. I thought the same thing. Like, I am not used to having blue or green lightsabers be threatening to the good guys.
Yeah, I
Every
thought that
time
was
you
a really cool visual too.
I agree with you. Yeah, very much so. Yeah, yeah, they could have made that lightsaber any color they wanted, but the fact that they made it a blue lightsaber in the hands of somebody that was doing so much threatening was, I thought, very effective. Very
Yeah.
effective. Um, you brought up episode 7 being one of your favorites. I feel that way about episode 5,
Oh wow.
and that's the episode when they right after Wim saves them from Jod in the treasure in like the in Tack Renard's place, and
Yeah, his litter.
he hits the thing and they fall down. So their whole plan and the developments through this episode of them trying to get off this planet, this is where they split into two groups. This is where we see that there's some tension between KB and Fern,
Yeah.
and I ate that up. I remember saying the first time we talked about Skeleton Crew that that Neil was my favorite from the beginning. I have a soft spot for Neil. Love that kid. He loves his bubble bath. He just wants to talk to his crush. Of course, he won over my heart even more so when they did the whole uh, at Akron storyline where he's introducing a new way of thinking for Hana. I loved all of that, but I remember saying that KB could be the MVP, and that I agree. I think that that played out, and she did, and we see her being so vulnerable in episode 5, and I really just loved all of that. Like,
Yeah.
that is a storyline where she is facing the fact that she's different. She has different capabilities than someone that she loves, someone that she admires, a very strong personality in Fern, and you can see both of their points. Like, Fern doesn't want to treat her differently because why would I treat her differently? She's my friend. But the courage that it took KB to admit, but I am different, I thought was just really wonderful. It was very poignant and a very important truth for that stories don't really tell very often. They took the opportunity to make a character different and express her feelings about being different, and then
Yeah.
confront what was causing the friction and seeing their reconciliation. Not to mention, I thought the big crab thing was sort of cool. It was stop motion. Um, the stuff between Wim doing the whole seeing how KB's visor thing works, and hearing that she had an accident and this is sort of a result of that. Like,
Yeah.
I just thought it was a very well put together episode. The performances were fantastic. And this is also the episode where Jod is making his case. I think this is the episode, or maybe it was episode 6. I just really liked whatever episode is in. I liked when he was making his case in front of the pirates and saying, we're all hungry. The
Okay.
credits are never enough. I like that. So whether it's episode 5 or 6, I don't know. But then, of course, to cap off my episode 5 discussion, the way that ends with the Onyx Cinder being like eaten up by this big trash compactor furnace monster thing, and then them figuring out how to get out of it and revealing that all of that is like external armor
Armor,
that's
yeah.
just encasing this really cool, sleek looking ship. And then as they're flying away, Wim says claims he's on the new ship. Like,
Yeah.
I just loved it. And that episode was directed by Bryce Dallas Howard, who every single thing she's made about with Star Wars has been a highlight for me in whatever season of the show she's making. And you can add this one to her list. She's such an amazing director, and this is no exception. I just thought that the whole episode was a real thrill. So yeah, that might be my favorite episode of the entire show. It's just amazing. It was just really good from start to finish, I thought.
I had no idea she directed. I looked her up. I recognized the name when you said it, and I'm sure you've brought her up before, but I, she does pretty good. Good for her.
I can't remember exactly. The other episode that I know that just is always is one of my favorites is the season 1 of The Mandalorian, where he goes to, you remember, where he takes Grogu into like this sort of like um woodsy type of planet, and there's this village that is like farming stuff in these little ponds, and
Yes.
he teaches them how to fight,
Yep.
and he meets that one lady who tries to like there's a connection there, and she tries to take his helmet off. And so you remember that episode? She also directed that episode, which is one of my favorite episodes of season 1 of The Mandalorian. So she just does a great job.
That's pretty cool. I uh I really liked the layer, and it very much screamed like man, I had the words, and then my brain said, "No, you're gonna think of Harry Potter, and the only thing you can think of is the Goblet of Fire." Um, Indiana Jones, where they had to pick the right, like chalice. What is it called?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. The cup of Christ.
Yes, but what was the movie?
Oh yeah, the Last Crusade.
Last Crusade, thank you. That whole thing, I loved that just because it was like, "Ooh, shiny things," and there wasn't a pair of eyes in that room that wasn't also thinking, "Ooh, shiny things," including Jod, because this was, like, his mecca, you
Yeah,
know?
yeah, yeah.
So, just seeing them figure out what they needed to do in there was really cool and made me wanna watch the Indiana Jones movies.
Oh, there's never a bad reason to watch Indiana Jones movies.
I still
Um,
haven't seen the most recent one.
it's good. It was a lot of fun. It's a great adventure. I enjoyed it. Um, so before we wrap up our conversation, let's talk about the characters. We've talked a lot about Jod. We've talked about Wim. I got to mention my what I loved about KB, and of course, I mentioned Neil. Um, I love that. I love that Neil is the heart of this group. Like I feel like he's the moral compass. Like when everybody else is off arguing, he's the one that's just like he literally said at one point, he's like, "Why can't you just say you're sorry?" Like he doesn't
Yeah,
understand. Like when that. Oh, by the way, that bounty hunter that turned them in on that spa planet,
yeah.
she's the voice of Merida from Brave.
Really?
Yeah, 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 yeah. I loved the look. The look of that character was amazing.
Yeah, the context on her eyes were scary.
They were scary, but like Neil doesn't get it. Like you did a bad thing. Why can't you just say you're sorry? And like, because if somebody said sorry to him, he's gonna forgive them, and
Yeah,
that's what I love
instantly.
about Neil. He doesn't understand why other people can't just do the same thing.
Yeah.
Um, Wim to me is like he's the adventurer of the group, but he also I feel like he provides the hope because when everybody had their moments of being down, even though he had his moments of being down, he provided hope to the others that needed it when they needed it. And the other characters didn't necessarily do that. I thought Fern was like the fearless leader of this group. She's unorthodox and she's probably overcompensating in some ways, but she's also extremely confident and didn't like didn't show a dent in her armor very often. Like she was up to the task. But she also learned, like especially through that whole KB situation, she learned that like not everybody is always up to doing what you can do. Um, SM-33 is another winner in the long line of Disney produced droids.
Oh yeah.
He's just incredible. And Jod, I thought Jod, being a scumbag, but I still feel like he has that good that could turn him into a very compelling, ultimately be a hero in the future if he continues to get his story told. So, um, I just anything you want to add to the character conversation and in the context of would you like to see these characters' stories continue in some way, shape, or form?
I will answer your question with a question. Would you want to see a movie that not necessarily starred and surrounded Judd, but that bounced around giving him like a backstory?
Like a story of him earlier in his life, or a story that we
Yes.
learn about his backstory as he's going forward.
No, no, getting him to the point that he's at.
No, I know what I need to know about him, and I thought
Would
that
you
that was
watch would you watch a 3 episode short that had that in it?
100%. Yeah, like
Yeah,
in the style of Tales of the Jedi or something, or
yeah,
like an animated thing. Yeah, I would do that. But I really liked how they revealed what they revealed about him, which was he came across a Jedi who was on the run. Like
yeah.
I loved that. We haven't seen an example of that, and that Jedi taught him some things and then got gunned down. So here's this kid who's trying to survive, finally comes across somebody who can help him, and then that person is taken from him. It helps to understand why he is the way he is, and I don't think I need to see any expansion of that. I think they did it just through the dialogue and the circumstances. I thought they did a great job, but I would like to see his story going forward. That's what I would like to
Mm,
see. Um,
gotcha.
and I would
I
love to see more of these kids as they grow up. Like you have the potential of turning these kids into something that could be something as they get older, not only in the story but in real life. Like they're young enough where you can tell. I gotta admit I had Stranger Things vibes um, with these kids and the potential for more stories down the road. So I would love to see more stories.
I wouldn't go as far as saying Stranger Things, but I do see what you're saying. I do think that there's a reason why Star Wars has so many like children in their projects recently. I do think that a portion of them is planning to like grow with the characters or have revisits to certain characters as they just naturally just grow up. And it's also helpful to get a new generation involved in Star Wars.
Yeah, it's true.
Um, But I do agree with everything that you said. I think there's a certain inherent just like naivety with children, obviously, but I think each of the kids had a different level of it, and they worked so opposite for such a long time, and you could just sort of see them starting to slowly meld themselves into a team, and then you saw that in full execution while they're trying to get out of like that metal crab's mouth before they eat the ship. And I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, and then you got to see a little bit more of it in the finale where Neil remembers, hey, there was a big laser cannon on top of the school on at Akron. Maybe the same thing happens here, and he was
Yeah.
right. So he helped, and then KB, of course, is the one that goes and flies off and gets the message out to Kim, and then and then the whole thing with the crash was fun, but like we knew nothing was going to happen to her,
Yeah.
right? But it was well done. And then you've got Wim and Fern doing what they need to do there with Jodge. So they ended up coming together as a team, really really well. So, um, but we haven't even mentioned it. There were B wings, man. B wings in the finale. It's a blink and you miss it situation, but you saw the B wings, right?
I don't even know what you're talking about.
It's your favorite Star Wars ship from Rebels,
You're
a B
lying.
wing. You'd missed it? You missed it. See, now you have your reason to go
You
back and
know,
watch the finale.
I won't. I'll just look it up.
It's awesome because when the X-wings show up, they come swooping in, and then off in the corner of the screen you can see these B-wings coming in, and the laser that the way that it shoots its laser, um, like from the tops and the
Yeah,
sides, and
yeah.
it makes one. They
Oh,
they go in
okay.
and they just tear through the pirate's ship like that.
This will be a conversation for off the air, but that's not my favorite ship. I do
Oh.
know exactly what you're talking about after I looked it up, but the B Wing isn't my favorite ship. I'll remind you because it's on record and I won't bore our thousands and millions of fans with my very niche favorite thing.
I'm calling your bluff. You just have to look it up because you can't recall what it's called off the top of your head.
I
To
don't
be
know what it's
continued.
called at all. I don't think I'll ever learn what it's called. I just know who flies it and when it was introduced. But um yeah, I liked those things. And I have more questions for you. We're gonna
Oh,
play
okay.
mom's favorite game.
Okay.
High low. um but I will give you the context of I'm going to say the show and you're going to say whether you rank it higher or lower than said show. You're gonna, for example,
Yes.
Ahsoka. Would you rank Skeleton Crew higher or lower than Ahsoka?
Uh, uh, lower, but not by much. And I don't want that to be a negative thing, just because I just love Ahsoka so much, and I really enjoyed that series and the potential for further storytelling. So I'll put Ahsoka higher than Skeleton Crew.
Yes, by no means is this saying that this is a bad show.
Yeah.
It's just saying how you prefer it. That's it.
Star
Okay,
Wars is pizza, and there's no bad pizza.
exactly. Let's see. I'm trying to figure out other comparables that are a little bit closer to Acolyte. Let's say Resistance.
Oh, this is higher than Resistance. Although Resistance was fun.
Really?
Skeleton Crew's higher than Resistance.
I would rank Resistance higher than this.
Oh, interesting. Yeah,
Yeah.
Resistance is cool.
Let's see. Boba Fett, Book of Boba Fett.
Higher.
Higher? Wow.
Yeah. I thought
Uh,
Boba Fett. There's a lot of stuff that I liked about Boba Fett, but I felt like this was put together better. This is a more cohesive story. Book of Boba Fett was sort of all over the place in certain aspects. So this one I just think was a better produced story.
I agree with you on that. Um, Tales of the Jedi. I know it's different, but
Oh, interesting. I would put it higher than Tales of the Jedi, just because Tales of the Jedi is like an anthology thing with
Yeah.
animated shorts, and they're fun, and they fill in gaps. But this again, I think there's more substance to the Skeleton Crew than the Tales of the Jedi.
Okay, and then last two. Acolyte.
Yeah, higher than Acolyte. You can listen to my rants about the Acolyte and how the story didn't resonate with me on our Acolyte recap episodes. So yeah, higher than Acolyte.
And last but not least, and there is a right answer to this one, Rebels.
Oh, Rebels and Mandalorian for me are pretty much top of the mountain when it comes to episodic. And, it can include Clone Wars too. So I would put Skeleton Crew below Rebels. But that's not really even a fair comparison either, because Rebels is like this complete masterpiece where the
Sure.
story is told with a beginning, middle, and end. And I feel like Skeleton Crew maybe just at the beginning of that story. So we can circle back and recap that maybe in a few years. But yeah, Rebels is sort of top of the mountain.
I like it.
You
Well
didn't
done.
mention Mandalorian.
Well, I feel like okay, because you didn't mention that on like your top tier 3. I know the answer, but Mandalorian.
Yeah, lower. So
Okay.
I would put the Skeleton Crew lower than Mandalorian. You didn't mention Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Obi-Wan Kenobi. I was only giving you X amount. I wasn't going to compare it to every single show, but we can. Obi-Wan Kenobi, would you rank it higher or lower?
No, I don't know. Skeleton Crew, I would put below Obi-Wan just because of the Obi-Wan Darth Vader stuff in Obi-Wan, and of course Leia was still amazing in Obi-Wan. So, yeah. Again, not a knock to Skeleton Crew, but Obi-Wan is another one of my favorites. So, yeah, it's Skeleton Crew is up on the higher end of the middle of the pack if we were putting
Yeah.
them all in order.
So then, since we're not going to just leave off 2 of them, Bad Batch.
Oh, I don't like this game anymore.
Yeah.
No, I'm done playing.
No, we were done playing and you wanted to keep playing. Now I want to keep playing.
Skeleton Crew is just a little bit lower, but because Bad Batch is a very special place in my heart. So
Well, I'm glad that you made the right answer. Okay, and then let's see. Visions.
I'd put Skeleton Crew over Visions. I like the idea of Visions, and there's been some incredible Visions episodes. But again, the structure of Visions is like a one and done episode where it doesn't connect to each other, and they're
Yeah,
wonderful and they're well produced. But I do like the cohesiveness of Skeleton Crew.
I
Do
think
I
that's
win
it. I don't
something?
know of any other
Do I
ones.
win something?
Big, fat, crisp high five.
Well, thank you for sharing your thoughts on the Skeleton Crew. I thought it was a wonderful conversation about a wonderful TV show, and you should rewatch the finale when you're not dying of the flu and in a better frame of mind. Any final thoughts, or is your brain empty?
My brain is empty, but my head is full of mucus.
All right. Well, thank you everybody for listening to this episode of the Colby Cast. We appreciate all of your support and just being a part of this community. If you are in the mood for rating our podcast, please do so, because that would really help us out a lot. So for Caleb and also for Luke, who is going to be doing homework for the foreseeable future, this is Colby reminding you that you are looking at a level 7 systems coordinator. If you enjoyed this episode, let us know. You can find the Colby Cast on Instagram, Threads, and X at the Colby Cast. Episodes can also be found on YouTube, so like and subscribe. If you feel so inclined, rate and review our show on your podcatcher of choice. That really helps the show beat the algorithm and helps us find new friends to add to the conversation. If you're wordy, like me, you can send an email to thecolbycast@gmail.com. All music is licensed through Adobe Stock and performed by ProMusic24. This podcast is not endorsed by anyone or anything for that matter. It's intended for entertainment and informational purposes only. All original content of this podcast is the intellectual property of the Colby Cast unless otherwise indicated.
That'll do, donkey. That'll do.